Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm Dr. Stephen Greer, and I'm joined today with Linda Willits, and we're going to be talking about the exciting events that happened at the recent gathering of over 200 people under the stars in Rio Rico, Arizona. And I'd like to thank the World Puja Network for hosting us and allowing us to have this time to share with you our experiences and our message. So thank you all for joining us. And right off, I'd like to say that this event in Rio Rico, which is about 40 or 50 miles in the desert south of Tucson, was just an incredible event. I've spoken at larger conferences and things of that sort, but to have over 210 people out under the stars for 3 nights doing meditation and doing a puja for that many people and making contact, and the incredible sightings and everything that happened during those 3 nights was really a historic event and something that I think people really enjoyed. And so thank you, Linda, for organizing that. Linda organized it, and it was a wonderful event for everyone who attended.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it was great.
One of the things that the first day of the event, one of the things that, of course, those of you who've listened to the World Puja show that Dr. Loder and I did 2 weeks ago, was to unveil the briefing that I did for President Obama. That we did that the very first afternoon that we gathered on Saturday, and the 24th of October. And this had a great effect of galvanizing people in terms of focusing on the significance of what the DisclosureProject.org and CSETI.org are doing, because everyone there realized that with this new administration that there's great potential for change, but that a lot of what has to happen is that the people who understand the implications of disclosing that we're not alone in the cosmos and how contact is made are really at the leading edge of change in the world today, that the transformation of the Earth from a sort of an industrial society that's collapsing environmentally and economically to a sustainable civilization that's enlightened and cosmically aware, and also using very advanced technologies that do not damage the Earth at all in order for us to live in an abundant and high-tech fashion, that these issues are all intertwined, and that this is the time right now for all of us to be aware of it, but also to make our leaders aware of it, and that the way that change really happens is in consciousness, that everything happens first on the level of mass consciousness of people becoming aware of it, but also in a deep state of meditation, actually seeing a new future and a transformation of the world around us. And that's what we were doing with over 200 people out under the stars for 3 nights, is deep meditations for the transformation of life on Earth, prayer for the Earth and its healing, and also contact. And we basically made everyone there an ambassador from Earth to these civilizations, and we were getting reports from people who were having experiences as they went back home, and people were there from all over the world. I mean, Linda, I can't remember how many countries, but...
Oh, yeah, I didn't count them up, but Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Norway, England, Malaysia. Yeah, except probably I'm forgetting one. There, quite a few. Norway. Did I say Norway? I can't remember.
Right. Yeah. So there are people from all over the world. So it was really a global gathering, which was wonderful, and had the effect of changing the way people view the world's current state and how to get from where we are now to the good future that we know is awaiting humanity. And so that's how we started it off, with the unveiling of the briefing I did for President Obama. And then that night we went out under the stars, and we had some really pretty amazing objects, ET craft that flew right over. And in fact, pretty soon on the website at cseti.org, we're going to have some images up. Raven Nabulsi, who was there, took one picture of I believe it was on the second or third night that we were out, of a really amazing tetrahedral-shaped craft that was materializing right over us.
Right.
And it was interesting because in the meditation of remote viewing that I had done earlier that evening, I had seen directly over us this tetrahedral-shaped ET spacecraft that would appear. And I told everyone that. And she actually was able to image it and take a photograph of it, and it's really a pretty astonishing photograph.
It is. It's awesome.
And so, and that's not the only object that came over. The very first night, we actually had a massive, kind of a golden spherical craft that came into the atmosphere over towards the south and came in very close behind some palm trees. That we saw from the stage, and was headed west, and a number of other events happened.
Oh, we had the disc-shaped object that flew across the east that was quite large and materialized.
Yes, we had a very large one up near Orion.
Right, correct.
That was a disc-shaped object, and quite a few of these we did get filmed with the night scope video cameras, and these are going to be things that we're going to be putting up on the website, and also in some upcoming DVDs that we'll put together from the events following the DVD that was just released. And one of the things that everyone I wanted to announce, we have this new DVD and book called Contact, Countdown to Transformation. And this book is sort of a cumulative history of the last 18 years of the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which I founded in 1990, going out all over the world with teams of people, and the kinds of contact we've had. And it has in it a videotape and photographs of encounters and craft, as well as tones that have come right into the area that we've recorded from ET vehicles that over the last 18 years. And this is on a DVD that you get for free with this new book, which is called Contact, and it's you can get that at disclosureproject.org. Is the only place it's available right now because it's just been printed, but it is available there. And interestingly, the DVD has images that started in 1992 when we were on a beach in Florida near Pensacola. And we had 40 or 50 people out for a workshop, and we had 4 extraterrestrial vehicles materialize in the air very close to us. At that time, we didn't have these wonderful, almost fourth-generation night scopes, hooked digital cameras. It was the old high-8 cameras. So, but still, you can see these objects. And I started making a triangle in the sky with a light that I had, a very bright light, and the craft made a triangle in the sky. And then when we were signaling to these craft, and they were signaling back, and while all this was going on, there was a sort of dematerialized ET presence that was sort of what we call sort of etheric or astral energies. That's an extraterrestrial electronic projection, sort of like a hologram that came into the parking lot. And you could actually see the figures of these ET beings moving around us there by the beach. We were by a state park in Florida at the time. And it turns out there were 3 Air Force officers there who had been pilots, and they were just astonished, and 5 or 6 different videotapes and photographs. And the next day it was on the front page of the Pensacola paper that this had happened. Someone, not from our group, but at another location, saw this had been happening and photographed it. And so that is on this DVD, starting way back in 1992, March of 92, things all the way through up to and including events that just happened this summer on our expeditions in Mount Shasta and Crestone and other places. So I think you'll find it very interesting to see these encounters and photographs and hear the tones that have come from the ET technologies that we've recorded, as well as the tones that we've gotten from Colin Andrews, who was a keynote speaker at the conference. And he unveiled some things that I think were really amazing. I know for the first time he spoke of some things that he had never shared publicly. And Linda, you may want to comment on some of those.
some of the things he shared were the interactivity between he and his team, Busty Taylor, and I don't remember all of the men on the team, but they were talking about this was in the early days of crop circles when they were just beginning to form, and they were quite simplistic at that time. They were just round or something, or sometimes like sort of a round circle with like a halo around it. And they started talking about, well, what if these could be combined, and the design could be combined, and it could make this somewhat more elaborate design, and then they'd talk about that among themselves, and then the next day that would appear in a field right near one of their homes. And so they had a number of these interactive experiences that happened to them over the course of the first several years of their crop circle research, and he has pictures of all of that, and it was really amazing.
And also on one account, Colin Andrews is a very dear friend and a brilliant man and a sincere man. There was one account where he was just beginning to investigate the crop circles, and he said a little prayer and he said, God, will you show me what this is and show me that this is real? And right near where he was living in a field, a very important crop circle appeared literally that night. And so there's a lot of it. And so I call these crop circle CE5s, close encounters of the fifth kind. And a close encounter of the fifth kind is a term that I coined in 1990 to describe when humans invite contact as opposed to just accidentally seeing an ET craft or a UFO or passively being observant of an event that happens. A CE5 is a very unique, empowering category of contact where it isn't an accidental event. It's an intended event that the humans have prepared themselves to invite. And it can be very subtle. It can just be as much as wishing for, asking for some manifestation or some evidence, and the ETs will do it. But it has to be done from a point of purity of heart and detachment and sincerity, and that's the state Colin Andrews was in when he asked for this, and it happened. And not long after that, I went over to England, and in 1992, on my first expedition, and I took a team up on Woodborough Hill, which is near Alton Barnes, which was the epicenter of where the great pictograms, the great pictoglyphs that were gorgeous, complex shapes that were appearing at that time. And Woodborough Hill is surrounded by this farm that Tim and Polly Carson had, that about 1,800-acre farm that we were allowed to use for our research and for contact. And one night we decided, there were about 12 of us, I think, and we decided to go up on top of Woodborough Hill, which was a tall hill overlooking this whole region. And we decided, after we got up there, a shape that we would ask the ETs to make. And we all, no one in the whole world knew what this shape was. And we decided, I actually saw it in my mind's eye, a equilateral triangle, which was 3 circles connected by lines that made a perfect equilateral triangle. So we actually went into deep meditation using the CSETI protocols. And the protocols we use is to go into this deep state of quiet meditation and then to remote view space and the ET civilizations and their spacecraft. And then we transmitted this form to them, this specific crop circle shape, and asked them to please, if they could, to make that shape appear in a field nearby. And sure enough, the next morning, in fact, at 5 in the morning or so, a farmer within line sight of where we were at a place called Oliver's Castle, which is a cliff, actually. It's not an actual castle. It's a big rock outcropping. He was out in his field and saw this crop circle, and it had manifested very quickly from the time we were up there at midnight until he saw it at 5 o'clock. And no one knew, except the group that was sitting there with us, that this was the shape we were sending to the ETs, and it was made that very night, and it was precisely and exactly what we had projected mentally to the ETs. And that's when I realized that the ETs can interface with us in ways that are really amazing in their precision. Because in this case, and then after I shared this story, I learned from Busty Taylor and Colin Andrews and others that they had this same event happen where they had, Busty Taylor had just sort of whimsically said, God, wouldn't it be great if all the different shapes of the crop circles that have appeared to date would appear in one crop circle? And it did. It happened literally that night, as if someone was listening.
Right.
And so what I tell people is that, it seems quite mysterious until you understand that transdimensional technologies that allow you to communicate faster than the speed of light, are doing so through consciousness, through the astral and etheric energies, through visualization. And these what is thought? Thought is energy. Thought is something. And these technologies that the ETs have interface with that if it's very clear and very coherent. So you literally have what I've called consciousness-assisted technologies and technology-assisted consciousness, where technology can assist an individual's mind to remote view, for example, or you can have your own consciousness interface with the technology to manifest something or to communicate and transmit information across the vastness of space, because the speed of light is too slow. You cannot, our nearest galaxy is Andromeda, which is 2.5 million light years away. And so at the speed of light, to have a two-way conversation, there would be 5 million years. It's just way too slow. And that's going at the speed of, cell phones and radio waves and telescopes and anything in the electromagnetic spectrum. So you're dealing with transdimensional reality, and with that you're instantly into this, everything that what I call that goes through the crossing point of light. And this new book goes into this in 1,000 different ways, all the different experiences that Linda and I and Sherry and Dr. Loader and Dr. Bravo and all the team and all the thousands of people we've been training have had all over the world, doing these contact protocols, which are rooted in the understanding of what is existing beyond the crossing point of light. And it's quite clear in talking to people like Colin Andrews that many of the people who have been researching and who took it, because he's an electrical engineer, who has taken it from a purely linear scientific perspective to start with, quickly come up against this, what Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the Air Force astronomer for Project Blue Book, used to call high strangeness, which is the heart of the mystery here, but it's also the heart of the lesson, and that is these interstellar civilizations are using technologies that are interfacing with thought and consciousness in a transdimensional fashion. And so that's what we're experiencing, and that's really what was beautiful about this special lecture that Colin Andrews gave, was that he shared not only his contact experience at a young age with an extraterrestrial craft that had landed behind his home, and which he actually left a ring, a sort of a proof of that is there to this very day.
A ring in the grass.
Yeah, a ring in the grass that you can see.
50 years later.
Yeah, it is. It's over 50 years later. You can still see it. And he shared his contact that he had back when he was 5 years of age, and then the crop circle events happening, as he discovered later, that were in that same area of England. And also the mystery of the triangle, the triangular form, that there's sort of a triangle of events that he described in this lecture. We hope to have it on a DVD that is a geographical area that includes Stonehenge, but is in that area of England where the epicenter of all these crop circles have been, and it makes another C-SETI triangle, as we call it, a perfect equilateral triangle. And this motif of a triangular shape keeps coming up, and it's something very elemental and rather an archetype, a sort of sacred archetype form. And he sort of connected that form in the C-SETI triangle to a larger geographical area that makes a perfect triangle, where all these crop circles have been occurring, and not just crop circles, UFOs, materialized spacecraft. He showed pictures recently near Silbury Hill, where we've done a lot of our work, of a craft that looks very similar to the craft that's on the DVD that we're making available with this new book that Raven took off of the Outer Banks in just this past May of 2009, flying right by Silbury Hill. It looked almost exactly like the disk actually that landed in the field, because in 1992, the same year that we created the CSETI triangle mentally and had the crop circle, the ETs make one in the crop circle, we had about 100-foot diameter disk land or hover 10 feet above the ground in a field that we were in at this same farm near Woodborough Hill in Alton Barnes. And this same craft, or one that looks very similar to it, has just been photographed near Silbury Hill. And near there also, there's a policeman who saw a couple of ETs that were very tall, slender, in sort of white robes and hoods in a crop circle field, or in a field, checking things out. And when he stopped and went into the field, they moved at such speed and actually left some evidence in the crop circle, in the crop of where they had run, and left some evidence there. And this is quite a case. And so Colin Andrews presented all of this that's been going on in 2009 this year in the crop circle. So that's a very exciting lecture that we hope to have available on a DVD fairly soon. And also all of the sort of interactivity through thought and consciousness, including the tones, which, you may want to comment.
Right. Before I get to the tones, these crop circle CE5s are still occurring to this day, and Colin Andrews took a lot of flack a number of years ago when he pointed out that a large percentage of crop circles were human-made, and people didn't want to accept that. But what he's found since then is that a lot of these human-made crop circles are CE5s, and in fact, it's happened on several occasions when people were planning the design that they were going to make in the field, and for whatever reason didn't get out there that night to do it, and the very next day that exact design that they just had in mind was already in the field, by the unknown source, the ETs. So that is still continuing to this day. And then the tones that he recorded, Colin Andrews recorded the crop circle tones that we've used on CSETI trainings ever since. And these tones are still occurring to this day. To the point,
recently in a tree.
Right, recently, yeah, like they're emanating from trees and bushes and are audible. And what's interesting, he had a tree trilling tone that he played that sounded very similar to the looped recording of a tone that we heard in Mount Shasta in 2005 that our musician, our CSETI musician, Charlie Baylog, enhanced the sound and looped it to make it longer, and it sounds very much like Colin Andrews' tree trilling tone, which he just taped the audio from a tree that was near a crop circle.
Yeah, it was near that, and it was almost like, of course, the tree effect was interesting. It was like the tree was some sort of antenna, electromagnetic field antenna, like we had the Joshua tree in a couple years ago that was vibrating and moving back and forth as if it was pulsating to some kind of invisible energy field, and all of us went up to it and actually could feel it moving. It almost felt like it had a sort of a resonant heartbeat to it.
Right.
So that was a couple of years ago. But there are all these sort of very, very strange manifestations of ETs that appear, because everyone thinks of science fiction films, and of course often we have had these craft fully materialized in three-dimensional space-time. But then there are all these other, actually even more interesting things that they do that are very interactive and which are mind-blowing as you begin to investigate them.
And there's a never-ending variety. We're just always amazed. They always come up with new material every expedition we do.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, it was interesting comparing all of these different tones. And then Lindy Tucker was there, who had also collected a number of these tones from UFOs and ET craft in Canada from the 70s and others from all over the world, and the degree to which that happens. So I tell people it's not just what you see, it's also what you hear and what you feel, and then there can be these other manifestations in nature where the crop circles are very interactive with what one is thinking and asking the ETs to do, and will do it in ways that really baffle the sort of left-brained, materialist, reductionist, scientific Western worldview. But it's because you're not dealing with a civilization, or a civilizations, plural, that are locked into early 21st century Earth sciences that are barely out of the Stone Age. You're dealing with civilizations that for thousands, and in some cases, I'm convinced, millions of years, have been transdimensional and interstellar, because you can't travel amongst the stars slower than the speed of light. And when you cross the light barrier, you get into all these unusual transdimensional, etheric and astral and causal and, in fact, very Vedic, since we're on the World Puja Network, we'll talk about the Vedas, the ancient Vedas, Vedic sciences, where there's name and form, where tones precede light and form. For example, one of the accounts in this new book, Contact, that has just come out a couple weeks ago, that you can get at disclosureproject.org, is an account of our experience when the tones that Linda was just mentioning at Mount Shasta happened 4 years ago. And when that happened, the tones that we recorded on Linda's little tape recorder are just sort of a faint hint of what it actually was in terms of experience, because it was a multi-dimensional, omnidirectional tone that came from within space as opposed to a linear being projected. And everyone in the group, 30 or 40 people sitting there out there under the stars in the middle of the national forest, literally saw the shape of spacecraft or form. And they were like spheres hooked together, almost like a string of pearls. And some saw them as white and saw some as sort of a grayish silver or pearlescent. But everyone saw form with the sound. But the sound manifested the form so clearly it was palpable in just a split second in your mind. And everyone experienced that. And this is the kind of thing that's happening where I'm telling people it is so amazing how this contact is proceeding when we're having real extraterrestrial civilizations contact us.
That sound was interactive as well, because you were doing a meditation, and it was maybe a minute or two into the meditation was all. You stopped speaking for quite a few seconds, and which was unusual. You usually don't do that in a meditation. It was during that quiet period that you left a gap in the meditation that tone occurred, so that we were able to hear it, and there was no background noise, so it was able to be recorded, even though it was somewhat distant from my recorder. And it happened in the direction of the cathedral area, too.
Right, this area where we've had contact, a grove of trees at our Mount Shasta site. And all of these experiences, by the way, are in this new book that just got released 2 or 3 weeks ago. In fact, the very first batch was sent to the Rio Rico conference, and I signed one for everybody. But
hot off the press.
Yeah, but now it's available at disclosureproject.org, and you get with it this free DVD that has all these amazing images and tones on it that we're referring to, including Colin Andrews, the crop circle tones, and the C-SETI crop circle that appeared in '92, and a number of other things that are on it. So I hope all of you will get that, and it's a great way of learning not only how to make contact, but what happens when you go out under the stars, or even if it's a cloudy day, it doesn't matter, how these ETs might come through the crossing point of light through transdimensional space-time and interact with you, because it's a full cataloging of all these experiences we've had in Belgium and Mexico and all over the United States and England and over 18 years. So it's really quite an anthology, in a sense, and a history of these experiences of our group. And it's something that I think all of you will really enjoy, not only seeing all the videotape and images and pictures, but also the accounts. And it's not just my accounting of it. It's me and Linda and Dr. Loader and Trudy Geiker and
Debbie
there's a dozen or so people sharing their experiences, and many times their experiences of the same event from their own perspective, which is really quite enriching and quite wonderful. So that's what that is. So we went through a lot of that material, and I actually on that first night at Rio Rico showed the DVD with all of these images out under the stars, which was the first time an audience had ever seen them. So it was really quite exciting to go through all of that. We were on this roof terrace at Rio Rico, and as Linda mentioned, we had multiple ET craft that very quickly would fly over, and one that floated over rather slowly in the south. And then other nights we had other events happen, including the tetrahedral ship. But one of the things that happened was one afternoon, we had a lot of military surveillance, and this is typical of what happens. I mean, I tell people that certainly, if you're putting together the briefings for the president and the CIA director and training thousands of people to bypass this secret government lock on this subject and make contact directly, there's going to be monitoring of what you're doing. And so we had monitoring of this event, including not only drones that were circling us, that were unmanned aerial vehicles. Ironically, as I was flying into Tucson, I was sitting next to a man who worked for Science Applications International Corporation, whose specialty was unmanned aerial vehicles, who happened to be in a nice suit sitting right beside me talking about this. Coincidence? I doubt it. But anyway, when we were at lunch on the terrace of this hotel one day, an unmarked helicopter, kind of drab army olive green, came within feet of the balcony and had some sort of instrument. The door was open and a man was leaning out of it with either a telephoto lens or some instrument taking pictures of Colin Andrews and myself and Dr. Loader, and I think Len Katai was there. And what was interesting is we, thanks to Ted Loader having a camera with him, quick swung around, and we got two pictures of him, not of the person, but of the chopper. And so we were having quite a bit interesting surveillance, and it actually started the night we arrived and continued all through the night we left. But it didn't stop us, and it didn't stop anything from happening, because the ETs have ways of bypassing these little silly games that the military operations tend to engage in. And the last night, we had a number of drones, two of them at least, that were circling the area that were unmanned vehicles. But while they were circling, there were craft that flew in. One that flew in the north, in the kind of northwest.
Yeah, I saw that one. It was fabulous, because one of the things that the ETs do quite commonly is when they know your attention is directed at a certain place, they will appear there and show themselves. And so there were just a few of us out on the deck. It was a good 45 minutes before the group was supposed to start up for the night, so it was early, but it was dark already. And there were maybe 10 or 12 of the people from our group that some were already milling around out there, and this bright red drone appeared in the north and caught our attention. So we were standing up looking at it. And an ET craft came in, and it looked like it was very close, but it was behind the drone. And it flashed, a bright amber flash, but not a fast flash. It lasted a good 2 seconds. It was like a big flash showed itself, and then it receded. And then about a second or two later, it moved slightly up to the right and did it again. And I know that it was interacting with those of us that were watching, because it knew that we were looking in that direction.
Well, and the other thing that was very interesting that night is that the ET craft that were overhead that we saw flying out of Orion, and of course the Orion transmissions that happened at Joshua Tree last year are in this new book and also on the DVD. The actual transmissions, the tones, the electronic tones, and the translation that I provided were, to the best of my ability, I was trying to feel the energy and state what they were communicating for the 5 hours of contact that we had at Joshua Tree. in 2008.
That was amazing.
It was absolutely amazing and life-altering, actually, to be honest with you.
And I might add, the words that you were saying in your translation, they're not a lot of the structure, and it wasn't things that you would normally say.
Right.
It was obvious that you were translating someone else's words.
Yeah, I literally was translating through consciousness and through these electronic tones what the interstellar coalition out of Orion was transmitting to us. And by the way, we're going to be at Joshua Tree again in a few days. Actually, we're going to be there it's going to be
Sunday.
in November.
We'll be there Sunday.
In November of every year, we go there for a week. And it's going to be quite an amazing experience. And we're going to have about 45 people with us out in the desert up at this contact site that we have. Now, what's interesting about what happened that during this Rio Rico event was that the craft that came out of Orion were very distinct, multiple of them, and seen by everyone, and we filmed them. Also, we had a craft that I saw through the night scope drop out of Andromeda, in the area of Andromeda. If you look up at the night sky, you'll see sort of to the south of Cassiopeia, the Andromeda galaxy, and it dropped right out of space towards us and then went zap and moved all the way across the horizon in a couple of seconds. Like, you have never seen anything move like this. It was astonishing. And so we had all this going on right above us with 200 people in meditation. And I tell people there's the different manifestations of the ET presence, whether it's a craft sighting or a very quick light or a strobe that appears out in space that signals to us for 2 or 3 hours like they have in the past, or these transmissions that are these tones that were coming out of Orion at Joshua Tree last year. But the real action is happening because you have coherence building in deep consciousness, where you have 210 people going into deep meditation using this really beautiful mantra that's on the meditation CD. Then you can also get that at disclosureproject.org. And in that state of meditation, being able to see and communicate from the heart and the mind sort of this vision of a divine civilization manifesting on Earth and world peace occurring and transformation happening. And that's what we would do in these long meditations out under the stars. And, if you have a couple people doing that, it has a certain effect. But to have over 200 people doing it has a huge effect. And it has an effect on the most elemental level of the structure of reality, conscious reality that's manifesting space-time and physical reality. And so that was really the real work that was being done there. And whatever we saw and filmed is sort of secondary as I see it. But it was very exciting because I think this was a group, I have to say, I've never been with over 200 people for so many hours like this, out under the stars, that were so coherent and so orderly and so spiritually minded. It was just an amazing experience, and we plan to do this again next year, so stay tuned. We'll have information on that. We haven't, of course, we're barely recovering from that, and getting ready to go on another 12-day trip. But it's it was a wonderful experience. And then we had a fantastic presentation. Many of you may have heard of the Phoenix Lights that happened in 1997, which was, to give you a little background, was actually a CE5. What most people don't know about that event, and this is in this new book, and a lot of detail, more than I'm going to share now because we don't have time, but we had gone with our senior team down to Mexico in March of 1997, and we had a contact with a major contact with a large triangular-shaped craft that was near the volcano Popo that is there, and it was very, very close to us. And it actually was really connected to us on a deep level, almost on an angelic, celestial level, as well as materialized. And a lot of things happened that I won't go into. It's all in the book, but it's an amazing story. a couple weeks later, I was going to Phoenix to meet the picture editor for the BBC, who was a volunteer Disclosure Project member, and Sherry Adamak, at these laboratories where it was a digital video laboratory where we could put together the best photographs and videotapes of UFOs that have ever been taken from the 40s up to the current time. And we needed a good place where we could digitally download them and put them together into a master reel, a master tape to give to members of Congress that I was briefing in a closed session of members of Congress in 1997 in April. And this was in late March. And so when I was flying into Phoenix that very day, I was sitting and went into the protocols that we have, the CE5 contact protocols, and I went into deep meditation and remote viewed the ET civilizations and showed them where I was vectoring into Phoenix at the Sky Harbor Airport, and asked them to appear, if they could, and do something so spectacular that they would end up being able to be filmed and be known all over the world in advance of these meetings that we were going to have with members of Congress, trying to get them educated on the reality of this and to get this information out to the public as well as these new earth-saving technologies out to the public. Well, I landed at about 5:30, and by 8:30, all hell broke loose. The heavens opened up, and the famous Phoenix Lights happened. That within 2 or 3 hours of this CE5. And now, it could be a coincidence. I seriously doubt it, given what's happened in the past with this project. And so Dr. Lynn Katai, who's a fellow medical doctor, ironically, was also someone who had been having contact and interactive contact, something that she has not shared in the past, that's very much on the level of thought and consciousness and heart. And that she was also at the same time, and I didn't know her at all. In fact, she and I didn't meet until 1998 when she came up to Sedona to privately meet with me. And I'm the one who encouraged her to kind of come out of the closet, even though she was a respected medical doctor in the Phoenix area and was rather shy to do so because of the ridicule associated with this subject. But I said, look, people like us have to step forward and validate the reality of this and make it okay for other people to step forward. Because whether people like it or not, there are people do, look up to physicians and doctors and other scientists, and people need to speak truth to power, and so we need to do that. So she eventually did. But interestingly, at this talk in Rio Rico, Dr. Katai shared a wonderful series of things that, in fact, the highlight of her talk and the actual the finale at the last half hour of it was her sharing these CE5 type of interactive things that happened. That Linda, you may want to share some of that.
Yeah, she even prior to the Phoenix Lights, she had been having contact and seeing these ET objects out her big picture window in her bedroom, to the point that she had her camcorder at the ready all the time and had been filming it for some time, and so she had it ready, and her film footage, her video footage of the Phoenix Lights was used on all the news reports of it and such, and then she had kept like a diary and a log of all these events, and continued, and the Phoenix, she continued having contact and seeing objects through her window, and continued filming them and continued keeping this log. Well, she, before long, had quite an extensive book full of writings on this subject, and had shared it with her son, her adult son, who she really trusted his opinion, and he was really interested in the subject, and she wanted his opinion on whether or not she should write a book and put these things into a book. And after he read it, he told her that absolutely, that it was really important information that she certainly needed to put into a book. And she wanted so badly for him to be able to see the lights in person, the ET lights that she'd been seeing. And he was visiting at the time, and she just put forth this pure-hearted thought that she knew that he would really appreciate it. His heart was really there, and it would be so wonderful if he could see them. And they appeared for him, and that was one of her first heartfelt CE5s. That she I mean, it was quite a dramatic display that appeared that he was able to see.
Right, and it was definitely interactive at that point where she checked into this sort of pure place in her heart and asked them to do something not for her. And this is one of the things I was explaining to the 210 or 15 people at this event in Rio Rico, is that if you're just wanting to see something to satisfy your own curiosity or some sort of self-centered and rather boring and banal purpose, they're not going to do it. It's that the irony of it is that there has to be a certain element of selflessness, and there has to be a purpose greater than yourself, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that in people, and which is present in humanity, but often covered up with all the dumb selfishness and greed and violence that goes on this planet. So this is what they're looking for. It's a really key lesson. And when she did it, she didn't ask them to appear so that she could see something, because she already knew they were real. She didn't need to. She was doing it because she had this compassion and wanting her son to really experience the ET craft materializing there over the South Mountains of the Phoenix area outside of their home. And as soon as she did that in that spirit, they did. And that's exactly the spirit that's required. And people who can reach that state of, I hate to use the word pure-heartedness because it gets overused, but it is a sort of a childlike innocence and pure-heartedness. That's when everything happens. That's when they come. And the reason is because they're not interested in being dolphins at SeaWorld to jump through hoops for you to just do entertaining. They want some higher purpose and higher mission to be part of that. And when an individual or a group get into that state, amazing things happen. Amazing. And it's interesting because we've also had the inverse happen where there's someone present who's really very self-centered about this. And as soon as that person either leaves or falls asleep or gets sick and what have you, bam, then the ETs show up and a craft will fully materialize in the sky above us or something like that.
Yeah.
So they've made it very clear to me as sort of the director of the project and founder of the project that this is what they're looking for. And every account, Colin Andrews' account with the interactivity of the crop circles, Lynn Katai's account with her son, there is this element of sincerity and pure-heartedness, and it being coming from that place within, and then these interstellar civilizations, which are really quite enlightened, are very interested because they want to work with humans who get that. And it isn't that there's not enlightened self-interest here, and obviously all of us have a certain, but there has to be something more than just pure selfishness operating. If it's just selfishness and curiosity, no. I'm sorry, it ain't going to happen. I tell people, might as well stay home and, watch Jay Leno and eat Cheetos or something and then, do whatever boring things that, people enjoy doing. But, I think that this is really a central lesson to this. And it was interesting because these were people who, in the case of Colin Andrews and Lynn Katai, had this kind of interactive contact. They'd never shared that really in a public setting before. And this was wonderful that they did that because it sort of complemented what CSETI.org has been training people to do for now 18 years, and our experiences, which are chronicled in this new book, Contact, Countdown to Transformation. And so it's really wonderful that they share these lessons. And by the way, I just wanted to mention, we've just recently decided that we're going to, there aren't many places that are amenable to doing this kind of work in the winter in North America, but one of the few places where it is pleasant is in South Florida, and we're going to, near Fort Myers, we're going to go out on an island, Boca Grande Island, which is this beautiful island, a chain of islands out into the Gulf of Mexico. And February 7th through 12th, we're going to have a winter retreat where we're going to teach people the meditation and the contact protocols and go out on the beach by the Gulf of Mexico and make contact this winter. And the information is not yet up on our website, and their details are still being ironed out. But I wanted to let people know that if you wanted to plan to do that, we are going to have a gathering. It'll be a small gathering, and we're going to gather on a gorgeous beachfront house and in the great room. And it's going to be limited to 30 or 40 people, but it's not going to be like Rio Rico. It's a very small group. But those of you interested who might have free time and want to get out of the cold and come and do this for a week down at the in Florida, we're going to, you might want to just put that on your calendar, February 7th to the 12th of 2010. So we're just now planning those events, and that's going to be a wonderful experience and in a small group setting. And we've never done anything like that on the Gulf of Mexico since 1992 when we had these 4 craft materialize that we filmed. So it'll be interesting to go back there. So you might want to just check the cseti.org, cseti.org website in the coming few days, and we'll have more information up soon.
Right. It's going to be beautiful. Absolutely white, beautiful white beaches, very dark, no city lights, out on an island overlooking the vast ocean and the beautiful sky.
Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful retreat, and we're going to teach people. We're going to do a puja, a Vedic ceremony out over the water, and do the mantra meditation and teach people the contact protocols, and be doing that during the day, and then go out at night every night, probably till midnight or 1 o'clock, and be out on the beach under the stars. Hopefully it'll be clear, but whatever it is, we go out anyway unless it's pouring rain, and make contact and train people to make contact. So people will be trained to do that on this winter retreat, and we've never done one there, and it's going to be an interesting, exciting thing to do, so I hope you can join us. So, now, the other thing that was wonderful, at Rio Rico, we had Dr. Ted Loder presented a very sort of a tour de force of new energy, the history of new energy, and everything from Tesla back in the early 1900s all the way through T. Townsend Brown, who worked on the anti-gravity, high-voltage anti-gravity systems in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, to Stubblefield, who with Tesla took to Congress and demonstrated this Earth battery that basically picked up the energy of the Earth resonant field and converted it to electricity, and had free energy running his farm back in 1902, 107 years ago. Now, it was interesting because it was a wonderful overview of all of these things. And then, of course, what the OrionProject.org is working on, trying to put together a laboratory and research facility where we can pull together all of the folks that we've met who understand this, or to try to identify someone who has such a system working today, who is willing to cooperate in getting it out to the world. Unfortunately, there are a number of people who do have such knowledge right now today, but they are afraid to come forward with it. Even the ones we've seen demonstrated to us, typically these people are afraid of either being assassinated or put in prison or what have you, and that is not a conspiracy theory. It's unfortunately things that have happened, but we have enough people in our team who are connected up through shall we say, the powers that be, that I'm confident we can get this thing out if we get an operating energy system out, and that we're working feverishly to try to find someone who has it or to raise the funds to do it. But one of the things that of course, you just heard 2 weeks ago on the World Puja interview I did with Dr. Loder is that in the aftermath of releasing this briefing for President Obama, at the end of which you can read it at disclosureproject.org, is a call for this scientist and his team who had been, a year ago this week, had agreed to work with us to build such a system that would basically be a free energy electromagnetic system that we'd be putting out just as a proof of principle system, maybe a kilowatt of free energy. The very Monday after he left our farm here in Virginia on Friday, he was reassigned overseas and taken out of the country. And this is a man who works in classified programs and works in a very sensitive area. But he now, just as of a few days ago, has resurfaced and is wanting to try to do this again, and apparently is being given the all clear. So if you can keep all of us in your prayers and thoughts, we're hoping this can stay on track and that we can move this project forward and properly support this scientist, and in the next few months try to get one of these devices, at least it's certainly not something that could go to mass manufacture in a few months, but something that could prove this and get it in front of enough people in the world and disclose it to the world so that people will see that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that we're going to be able to transition out of the dark ages of fossil fuels and oil and gas and earth-destroying nuclear technologies to these new technologies that get energy from the fabric of space and time around us. And that this having been done dozens, if not hundreds of times over the last 100 years, we've identified this scientific team that we have high confidence can do it and who are now wanting to work with us. It's been a huge, huge undertaking and quite a roller coaster for me personally and for all of us who have worked on this. But we're hoping all of you will keep this effort in your prayers and in your meditation for its protection and its staying on track, because the world needs it and we need it now. And we really can't wait another 100 years. We can't waste another 100 years like has happened, and the world and our children deserve a better way of living on the earth that doesn't cannibalize Mother Earth in order for us to live in any semblance of developed civilization. So this is our best chance, our best shot at it. And we hope it can stay on track. So just keep that in your thoughts and prayers.
You know, and another thing that I'll just add about that is that you had your dream about hope some time ago and had written it up and had not released it, and had been just not really waiting, but waiting somehow for a signal of the right time to release it. And the time you chose to release it, about a week or so ago, was right around the time, it would have been the time that this man was being released by his handlers.
Yes, it would have been. So, yeah, and the refrain that was in this dream was, "Let us hope so that we may live." And so that's where we are now. And I think our hour is up, but I would invite people to go to disclosureproject.org and get this new book and DVD and called Contact, Countdown to Transformation. And I hope to see you all in February 7th through 12th on Boca Grande Island out in the Gulf of Mexico. And I hope also that you'll be able to help us at the OrionProject.org. So I'd like to thank Linda for organizing all these events and joining me here. And I'd like to thank the people at the World Fusion Network for giving us this time to share these updates with you. This is Dr. Stephen